Today I was going to do a video on the anti-Semitism problem within the Labour Party. You see, after seeing a video by James Desborough or Grim Jim, my interest was piqued, which was fortunate because a patron had dumped some sources on my server, so I added to it with sources I had found of interesting little incidents. But because it requires me reading passages of the Talmud, or Talmud, whichever way you want to pronounce that, if at all correct for both, either, or whatever, it's going to take a little time and won't be out till tomorrow. Since James's position is more of a free speech argument, it should be quite interesting. Instead, today we are going to address the immortality that has become Donald Trump. And I know what you're all thinking, but Omegon, how did Trump attain immortality? Well, he did it when he became the 45th President of the United States. But there's something else he's done. So, this is from CBC, by the way. In a divided US, therapists treating anxiety are hearing the same name over and over again. Donald Trump. Or to Milo, Daddy. Trump Anxiety Disorder, or TAD, may not be an official diagnosis, but therapists know the symptoms. Let's think. Blonde hair that is combed in such a way that it looks like a wig and is held together with what must be epoxy resin. Fake tan, because damn. Although it has worn off over the years. The whitest teeth on the planet. Jowls. An opinion. These could all be triggers, by the way. A desire to only eat McDonald's. A dislike towards illegal immigrants. Let's think, what else could he possibly be a symptom? Could create a symptom, that he has anything to do with. Employment growth, economic growth, meeting with the enemies. So relations with Russia and North Korea, that could be a symptom. Potential trigger, because we must be enemies with everyone, you know. So let's not have any kind of foreign policy that involves talking. Getting shit done. There we go. Having consensual sex or consensually touching another woman. These are nasty triggers, don't you think? In case some people wonder, I'm not a huge fan of him being president, but I love the fact he is president at the same time, because it's so fucking funny. Is he going to blow us up? That's something often touted by people. They think because he has the access to the nuclear weapons, he'll do it. But, as time has shown, it has been nothing more than fearmongery. He has yet to do it. In fact, him waving his dick all over Twitter has created discourse, which it certainly did with North Korea. One can only hope that that progresses into full denuclearization in that region and further peace talks between North and South Korea, either to then reform as Korea or just become a good state, I guess. They've got a lot of work to do though. So inquired one of Elizabeth Lamott's patients recently, fretting out loud about the volatility of US President Donald Trump's actions during a therapy session at her Washington practice. He is quite volatile. On Twitter, I have heard some of the rumours of things he's done at NATO summits or G7 summits, like throwing down some starburst on a table to Angela Merkel and saying, "Don't say I never get you anything." To be fair, if you wanted to make Angela Merkel change a bit, why don't you just follow the Snickers adverts? Give her that instead. Or is that not an American thing? It was a rhetorical question, one that predated Trump's threats of a showdown with Iran this week. To be fair, many people called Trump out for that Iran nuclear deal pullout. I still firmly believe he was right to. It was built on a lie. Why on earth would anyone with any level of principle want to remain a part of it? It wasn't exactly a foreign policy success for Obama. It was portrayed as such, but it was a lie, and Obama was a fucking idiot. But if the question wasn't meant in earnest, the politically induced anxiety Lamotte is hearing about from her clients certainly is, says the founder of the DC Counseling and Psychotherapy Center. Politically induced anxiety is not something that is entirely new to me. You see, when Antishkari released their album The Spark, I read up on some interviews that Raul Reynolds gave the singer for the band to explain the album's influences, and he indicated he suffered from massive anxiety and depression because of Brexit, because of Trump. They are a band that has been heavily influenced by current events and politics. You can hear it in their lyrics. In one song they said, "Our gracious queen should crush the crown and take a good fucking swing at Blair and Blount for leading the country into illegal warfare." In another song, Fuck all borders, fuck all boundaries, fuck all flags, fuck nationalities. Are you starting to see a trend here? In one of the more recent songs from the recent album, I want to take my country forward, not take my country back, repeated many, many times. And I think it's one of those sorry events where you have invested yourself into something you are very passionate about, and it falls apart because what you believe is not something shared by the majority of the people. So I can certainly understand politically induced anxiety being potentially real, but that could be applied to a number of things if you just change political for something else. You could have video game induced anxiety after all. If you suck and you aren't good enough, get good, scrub. She refers to it as a collective anxiety among patients who feel on edge about how potentially dire the president's decisions could be, and yet you were all remarkably silent when for 8 years nothing good actually happened during the time of Obama. You know what you need to do? You need to take back the House and try and impeach Trump, because that will totally fix this. That won't cause problems, although I will argue he's not going to lose the House, I don't think. Based on what's going on right now, he's probably going to win more seats and retain the Senate. There is a fear of the world ending. It's very disorienting and constantly unsettling. People have said this because of Trump's more bombastic approach. When he sat down with Putin, did you really think the world was going to end then? Because as far as I was concerned, I thought him sitting down with Putin meant, finally, these superpowers are going to talk. And he is actually doing that. What is so negative about discourse? This is almost... Actually, I can make a very good comparison here. People were so against talking to between these two groups, between SJWs and anti-SJWs, that when some started talking, there was quite a negative backlash. It was like, we're enemies, we must always fight, her. No. People made response videos to people because they disagreed with them fundamentally. But a lot of people on the anti-SJW side, that weren't just absolute ponage channels, left the door open to talk. They weren't there just to insult you or entertain their audience. They wanted to have that discussion. So when those discussions happened, people did lash out because it took a while for them to finally get it through their thick skulls that the whole point was to make them understand that they were wrong. Whichever side you're on, that is. I just don't give a shit. And I know it's not the best comparison, but it's somewhat similar, just without any weapons, money, although I'm pretty sure the Russians are in control of everything. What's been called Trump anxiety disorder has been on the rise in the months following the election, according to mental health professionals from across the country who report unusually high levels of politics-related stress in their practices. And maybe it's not surprising given the relentlessly negative headlines and politically divisive climate. That is not on Trump, where they've taken one of his tweets and just blown it the fuck up and done essays on what he has tweeted. The politically divisive climate, we can ignore that. Politics has always been heavily divided. That's why, although I'm not a big fan of your system, you have one. There's always going to be a winner and a loser. But the media do a fantastic job, and I know Trump calls a lot of them fake news, but they do a fantastic job scaremongering like there's no tomorrow, and whenever he does something good, they don't report on it at all. Now, a tweet to support this would be a tweet he made to President Rouhani of Iran, which says in caps, "Never ever threaten the United States again or you will suffer consequences the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." I'm pretty sure most of the arguments against that are that it's very unpresidential, although I would argue, and I said this on a stream with Trups on my second channel, when we were discussing some of the things Trump has done, I would argue that the term presidential has shifted over the years. For example, Obama innovated the use of social media. He had that cackberry, do you remember? Trump is merely doing what he does best, and that's use social media to get a point across. It could be argued to be unpresidential, but why should any president, why should any country sit back and allow another to absolutely talk shit about it and not expect some kind of consequence? Why should he? He is the guy with the biggest stick, and he wants to make it abundantly clear that he has the biggest stick. I don't really mind, because so far, his dick waving on Twitter has actually yielded results with other countries. When he fucks up, then we can talk about it. But as of yet, he has not really done that. This week, it was a menacing all-caps Trump tweet warning Iran about potentially historic consequences. Previously, it was his Supreme Court picks and fears that the legal right to abortion could be overturned, or his immigration policy separating families at the border, not his policy, or his apparent submission to Russian President Vladimir Putin before a global audience. His sitting down and talking to Vladimir Putin was not a submission, you uneducated dolt. Oh dear, this is terrible. Now the article continues going through what they call the symptoms, none of which include what I suggested earlier. The stress of supporting Donald Trump, because everyone's a victim of him here, and concludes by having a passage where it indicates some had to get off social media, stopped paying for cable, and started only reading fiction so that they tuned out Donald Trump, which is fine. The purpose of life is to survive. Apparently that's it. The meaning of life is 42, but I often found the best way to survive life was to develop a level of apathy. Now I do care about some things. Not much, but some things, and I've often found the best way to ignore everything around me, or to use my apathy to its full potential, was to simply look at it as an individual issue and decide whether or not it is right or wrong. If something is wrong, then I will correct it, but I don't have to show any emotion in that or be passionate about it. In any case, Trump anxiety disorder or syndrome or whatever you want to call it is hilarious, and I'm hoping more people are diagnosed with it so we can legitimize it. Maybe come up with some medication for it. I don't know, let's think. North Korean made Tic Tacs. Or, you know what actually fixes these kind of issues? I hear alcohol does. Why don't you drink some Russian vodka? Anyway, all my mockery aside, I hope everyone has a lovely Monday, and thank you all for listening.
Oh, goddowns.
In your arse.
Imagine my shock